All right. Okay,
Perfect.
perfect. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the GPN Texas monthly speaker series. My name is Brian King. I'm co-moderating with Maya Rhodes here today, and we have Jim Harries here with us from Esri. Got a great presentation for you. Stay tuned if you missed this or if you're driving and you want to see this afterwards. We'll post it up to our YouTube channel. Today's presentation is ArcGIS Living Atlas and Policy Maps. Jim has been with Esri, I believe, here since 1994. He's a senior principal GIS engineer and GIS engineering lead for the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. And he's going to go ahead and fill us in with all kinds of good information today. Go ahead and put your questions and comments into the chat, and we will read them out afterwards and during our QA session. So, Jim, thank you for being here, and we'll let you take it away and share your screen.
Okay, is it shared right now?
Yep, I see the full screen. If you want a presentation mode, and I think actually, let's see here. That one you might shrink. It seems like you got it in front of one here. There you go. You're good. Go
We're
ahead.
good now?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. There we go. Great. Well, thank you, Brian and Maya. And thank you to Liz Parrish for the invite. First met Liz at the Texas GIS Forum about 2 years ago in Austin. It was awesome. I can't get to Texas often enough. If you think that's a hint, it's because it is. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. We have something in common, and I want to challenge you. On screen, I've got a photo of my four sisters and I and my six cousins, all from that grandfather and grandmother, Mary and Elmer. And I wonder, can you pick out which one of us is me, the data nerd? So, any guesses there? Maybe you want to throw it in the chat. I'll give you a hint. I'm the one who's cute.
Oh, there's so many choices then. Gosh.
Any guesses in the chat?
Is it yeah, please throw them in the chat. I'm just saying out loud. Is it the one in the bottom left that's looking off?
Oh, that's a good guess. He's a geologist.
Okay, so data nerd, I do win.
Yeah, green shirt, someone.
Oh,
Yeah,
look
Green
at
got it.
him.
shirt,
Look at how
and
cute.
pretty much most days I skip to work here at Esri. I have that exact attitude as I walk through the door. It's just something that's persisted with me. Hey, just in case anybody out there has a connection to St. Louis, where I grew up, these are some of the things that influence the way I think about my use of GIS. Um, Journalism was my undergrad degree, so the approach, how you think about getting at facts and assembling facts into information and the process of interviewing. I didn't realize that when I got my journalism degree that they pay $12,000 per year. And so suddenly computers looked very, very interesting to me after 1989, getting that bachelor's degree. And eventually I was drawn to programming and found out I'm not really a programmer, but boy, this geography, looking at a topo map sheet in a snowstorm in Colorado and figuring out what's our route down. And I asked a simple question of the team, when's the last time this map was updated? And in the marginalia of that USPS topo sheet, it said last updated 1967. This was the year I was born. This was 1993. And I thought they have to be using computers for map making now, don't they? And when I returned back to civilization, I went to a library, which is a printed version of the internet, you might consider it. Went through microfiche researching how do people use computers and geography, and I discovered the fact that GIS was happening. So I went to Ohio State, got a degree in geography with Dwayne Marble, and joined Esri as an intern. I like them, they like me. I came back full time, met a girl who grew up in Redlands. Now I have a mortgage and two kids in college, so that's how that works. Just in case we have a connection on any of those things, my email address, or for any communication after this presentation, that's my email address at Esri, jharries, Jherries at Esri.com. So listen, my presentation is not really about how to use the software or how to perform a function. I want to influence you in two specific ways today. And that's my role at Esri as a lead on the Living Atlas team. I'm responsible for making maps myself. I make thousands of maps per year and layers. I advise teams on thousands of others. We maintain them year after year. So I'm just like you. I have to keep up with Esri. Like, I don't get a special version of the software that works differently for me because I'm an Esri staff. We're actually an in-house team who produce content using the GIS. If it doesn't work for us, we're going to talk to people about it. I literally, if I darken someone's door, there's a reason. And it's usually good news, but sometimes it's mixed in with some other news. That's how I've learned to present the information. The good news is I'm trying your stuff. The bad news is here's some observations you might be interested in as a software lead for the thing I'm using. So what do I do in GIS? Well, I appreciate art technology. The St. Louis Gateway Arch is depicted because I love it for its art form, but also the technology that went into making it happen. And it's a lasting, it's permanent symbol of something. And it's the same with GIS. The only reason I got into it, maybe some of you can relate, I got into GIS because it's pretty useful for getting some specific value out of it. And that has changed over my 30 years, and it's changed over your lifetime as well. I'm always looking at what can we do with it that could be a lasting impact. I'm attracted to things that last. So on screen, I've got this photo of things I care about, some old school film cameras that we've acquired or borrowed over time, because I like what that technology, the fact that it's lasting and it continues to function while other technology has come along, digital and all this other cool stuff. But I like these things because they still work. It's amazing. And coffee, I like the technology behind coffee. I like my 1997 Forerunner because that technology just works and it gets me to where I want to go. This is the world I grew up in with technology. My first computer on screen, a Texas product, I'll note, is the Radio Shack TRS-80 color computer that my engineer father hooked up to a black and white TV. Let me say that again, a Radio Shack color computer, which he hooked up to a black and white TV at first till he could spring for another option. And all this technology, I bring this up only to say, at the time, this was the best. And here we are later. We look at it warmly with nostalgia. There's Isaac Asimov, beloved figure. My first database was on that program called a Color File 2. My grandfather collected stamps over the course of 70 years, and he gave it to me before he passed away. And my parents gave me a great project. Let's catalog it all. Let's print it out on this $399 dot matrix printer. Again, the latest technology of the time. But what stuck with me is I was weird. I really understood the data. As I input stuff into the database, in my brain, I would form my own mental database about what is in that collection. Where do we have stuff? My first spreadsheet, Lotus 123. Some of you on this call are smiling. You remember Lotus 123. Others of you, yeah, go Google it. It's hilarious. I still remember some of the keystrokes. And then fast forward now, what am I doing? I'm working on ArcGIS Living Atlas, which is a global collection of content built by and for the ArcGIS community. It's about 10,000 items in Living Atlas. I've been working on it for about 12 years with about 60, 70 other people here at Esri, and a growing collection of people around the globe who contribute their content to Living Atlas. All these topics shown on screen are available: building footprints and demographic data, and VIIRS hotspots and flood layers. It's a growing collection. It offers ready-to-use layers. The layers are often put into web maps that you can use, scenes. We also have a collection of apps that consume and show the value of a drought-aware layer belongs in a drought-aware app to show what's possible. And then there's a growing collection of really amazing tools for machine learning and AI that you can run as ArcGIS deep learning packages. And all these things are at the core, they come from content created by the user community. So federal, global organizations, state and local organizations, commercial enterprises, We do have a partner network who contributes content to Living Atlas. Esri itself ponies up. We come to the table, we ante up, and we contribute things as well because we want you to have things that are available. So if the layers are available, a geographer like me, I just appreciate that we have the content available. It's included with ArcGIS. So if you have access to ArcGIS, you have access to this for free. Because it's constructed this way, it nestles nicely with a wide variety of products. That's great. That just means we can be effective together. It's a trusted collection. These are some of the key bullets that we talk about as one of the lead GIS engineers for it and a lead curator. We create expectations. We help communicate those expectations that if you want to be in the Living Atlas, we need good metadata. We need links to documentation. We need points of contact. We need recommended uses documented on the item itself. That's a little different than the old days where, hey, let's put up an FTP server and we'll put some README files and some PDFs. We're always going to do that. I get that. But we challenged ourselves with Living Atlas. What if these layers were ready to use? Just like a base map. That's kind of where it all started is everybody needs a base map. Well, now we have more than, I think it's more than 400 base maps available in Living Atlas, including a brand new 3D base map. As I said, it's more than just data, it's maps, apps, and tools. And then because it's deeply integrated throughout ArcGIS, you can expect that the content you find in Living Atlas, it works just like content you publish. Or that your partner organizations publish. These are just online layers and they happen to work really well. We learn a lot from those experiences. There's nothing like the act of publishing content to teach you more about how people expect to use your stuff. And we love that. We love the fact that Living Atlas gives us a venue to ourselves publish things, but also advise organizations such as yourselves on, you know, when you publish, if you do it like this, it's an emerging best practice. And it turns out really well documented items, they serve humans equally well as AI workflows. Turns out you get a 2-for-1 on that. When you take the time to add a field alias or a field description, you just save thousands of hours downstream for all the other people who were going to use your layer. Now they don't have to look up the field alias or the field description or what type of field is it. It's on board the layer. On my team, this is a representation of all the content that's in Living Atlas. So you could probably get a speaker from Esri on any one of these topics. If you just wanted to focus on imagery and elevation one day, I know the guy. Demographics, live feeds, anything. So in today's case, I'm the lead for our policy mapping group, and it probably begs the question, well, what is he talking about? I've heard of base maps. What's a policy map? Hey, it's just a term to describe a map that clearly shows where the opportunity to intervene is present. I want to say that again. A policy map is a map that shows where the opportunity to intervene has been made clear. Now, Stephen Goldsmith, former mayor of Indianapolis, gave me that gift one day when he was visiting. I showed him a map of, I think it was median household income for his hometown of Indianapolis, right? Thought I was smart. He's from Indianapolis. I'm going to show him a map of Indianapolis. So we fell into each other's trap. I showed him a map about something he already knew, his hometown of Indianapolis. And he trapped me and said, your map is interesting, but it's not a policy map. I'm like, oh, it's got great cartography. Pop-up's gorgeous. What's this guy talking about? So yeah, Stephen, tell me what it is. And this is the quote he gave. A policy map is a map where opportunity to intervene has been made clear. So some of these sample questions that lead to a policy map, it turns out policy mapping or creating maps of action, creating maps of meaning, whatever term you want to use for this style of map, a policy map is more than just, hey, I mapped the data. You actually answered a question. A policy map answers a specific question and it helps raise 3 more questions. That's what I tell people all the time. So on screen, you've got an example. Let's walk through an example together. This is a map of every car accident in a 6-month period in Los Angeles. I don't know if it surprises you that this has a lot of dots or it doesn't have as many dots as you thought. I've driven through this area many times. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh, yeah, dots on maps. I mean, we've all made this map before. Let's just throw the data on screen and just validate that we've got some data. But the challenge with this map is the subject matter and the map style, they are fighting one another. They're actually in disagreement with one another. And what do I mean by that? I mean, this map style isn't great for this subject. And the reason why is some of these dots, there's so many car accidents at particular intersections or sections of freeway that this style of map actually masks the problem. And as a group of colleagues who care about getting meaning from our data, we should be alarmed at that. We should look at this and say, this is a problem. We should change it. Well, that's part of the reason why me and others at ASV, we're very interested in the online space of how could we make mapping a better experience? What if we made it one click to get from this map of dots, one click to get to a heat map? That'd be good. If it's easy to do, people are more likely to do it. And that's the spirit of like smart mapping and ArcGIS Online and other projects. You know, if you make it easy for people to explore their data, they're more likely to explore it. And what if we could make the software relatively smart about, well, we looked at your data, we scanned it, here's some relatively smart default settings. Because the software doesn't know the subject matter. It doesn't know that these are accidents. It just knows that there are dots and there are more of them. So what do you see when you look at this map? What's the first thing that stands out to you when you see this map of a heat map of intersection? Yeah, I see intersections. Look at how the intersections pop out of the map. Now, a policy mapper is a person who asks, why? So from my journalism background, I just want to give this gift to you that it's always okay to question the map and question the data. Could this be real that we are having a lot of accidents at intersections? Probably. We all, perhaps who drive, we all know that intersections are a little bit higher risk at times. What else could it be? Could be reporting bias, that as accidents get recorded, maybe they use an address, and maybe some people who report accidents prefer to use cross streets. So it could be a data bias. I don't know yet. But I do know that just by changing from dots to a heat map, we move the needle a little bit. Let's move it again. What if we clustered all those dots into a cluster map? Now we're engaging our brain, right? We're engaging some numbers. We actually have hard numbers now, where here it's kind of an emotional map. Like, whoa, look at all the intersections and look at that blob right above the Los Angeles label right here. Look at that blob. That's crazy. Oops. That's crazy. So if we were to quantify things, I like that because now we're starting to get from raw data to an emotional view of the map. Let's get on to some facts. Now I see some clusters that we're putting numbers to it, but here's the thing. I can't manage a cluster in the real world. I can't call the streets department and say, hey, we want you to paint the streets in this cluster different. We do manage the roads. So in this case, all I did was take the street center lines from an open source layer out there, just an open data layer that LA publishes. And I connected to that street center lines layer. I said, give me in map viewer, I said, give me a 50-meter buffer around every street segment. And then they'll take those results, those little sausage links, a picture like a sausage links version of this, and then accumulate all the accidents inside of each of those 50-meter buffers. And this is the resulting map. So when you map it this way, a thicker line just indicates more accidents in that street segment. And that's okay, but what if the policy mapper is interested in where is it relatively worse and where is it relatively better? So I always encourage people to use color and size, or at least think about doing that, because it gives you, the color lets you use a percent or a rate. In this case, it's collisions per mile of road. And red is bad and blue is good. So what do you notice? The red areas jump out for sure, but check out all those blue streets. A policy mapper is thinking about Why is it bad where it is bad? But also, what is working well? If you're going to establish credibility with folks who establish policies or implement policies, it is sometimes useful to point out you're doing really well over here, and that's evident in the data. And what can we learn from that? I don't know. This is the start of the investigation. But hopefully you see three subjects. I see three subjects because I can't not see it anymore. The areas in red command our attention because that's really bad. We could spend 100% of
Uh-oh. I
that need
think
to do anything. We don't need to
there you
spend.
are.
Sorry?
Oh,
Okay.
you locked up for a second. Go ahead.
Okay. Better now?
Yes, you're
Okay.
fine.
Cool, cool. So areas in red, we could spend all of our budget there and make a dent. And then areas in blue, we might feel like there's no reason to spend any money there. It's kind of cruising on its own. I want you to pay attention to the areas in yellow. A policy mapper thinks about if we put 100% of our budget into the red, what happens to the stuff that currently is kind of middle of the road, so to speak, average? What if our policies cause that to worsen, like the whole histogram, the whole set of data, it all shifts towards the red because we tried to mitigate the worst of the worst and we left no money for this stuff is on the margin. It could be better, but maybe with some lane calming or some resequencing of lights, maybe we could. So we don't know those questions, but I always encourage people, try to make that map speak three topics. Where is it good? Where is it bad? And where is the margin? Where is the average stuff? And the question to you is, which way do you want that middle area to go? This progression of maps kind of connects to this famous DIKW pyramid of from data, we go to information. There's many styles of maps that can take raw data and create useful bits of information out of it. We're all pushing towards knowledge and wisdom eventually. The thing I like to point out to people is stated here on the left. Researchers and analysts, they do a lot of work to assemble the spatial data that they need just to ask that very first question. I've seen it on project after project. I'm sure you have as well. Assembling the data, QAing the data, vetting, and just the data. And by the time you get that data published, you're exhausted. You're like, okay, it's out. I hope people find it useful. Tools and processes that cause the cost of questioning and asking questions to become lower and lower. Those are great tools. So I welcome AI, I welcome ML, I welcome any process that helps us ask more questions for my area of interest, because the data publishers, oftentimes they see their role as, well, my role is to publish the data. I can't interpret. I've heard people literally say that. I am not allowed by law to interpret this data. I can only publish it. Cool. Data publishers, sometimes they see their activity as, well, my job is to publish the data. That's as far as I can go. And it's interesting that the market is really driven by people are craving the knowledge and the wisdom to learn from it. So anyone who can reduce the cost for asking those questions, they're a gift. I would argue all of us on the call are a gift, and you have either operated in this fashion in the past. So some of what I'm saying resonates already. And there's maybe you haven't thought about that. There are at least three groups involved when making maps and map products to help the world make better decisions, or specific parts of the world make better decisions. So on screen, I've got three groups, right? I've got GIS experts in one group. And then over here, we've got policy makers at the top. And then over on the side, we've got a subject matter expert who may or may not use GIS or may not do spatial thinking. Maybe they're a subject matter expert who's an expert on operations, but they haven't really thought about things from a spatial perspective or a temporal and spatial perspective. I think about people who manage transit systems. They not only have to solve a problem, they have to solve it every day of the year. Which is great. I guess we're all like that if you think about it. So these three groups, they're happy to exist independent of one another with only occasional cross-referencing. I've seen policymakers who have no idea that a given topic like unemployment can vary significantly within their city. But if you show them a map of it, they can't unsee it. And that's our leverage, right? To bring people together, you as a GIS expert, or you as a subject matter expert, or you as a manager trying to bring these people together, your entire leverage is if I can bring an amazing map to the meeting and show it in the first 2 minutes and not get bogged down in the details of the project and the program and the limitations of use and all that stuff. I know sometimes you have to have those discussions, but if we can provide the visual evidence, what I call a policy map, feel free to rebrand it, anything you like. You probably already are. But if you can bring it together, you literally will bring these people together because now the map is at the center of these three parties and the map becomes the area of focus. It becomes a discussion. As I said earlier, a great map, whether you call it a policy map or not, doesn't matter. But a great map answers one specific question and causes three more questions to come to the mind of the person in the room. We have a variety of maps to match different phases of policy life cycles. On the left, a lot of folks use maps to create awareness of an issue or concern. Just did you know that we had this many car accidents in Los Angeles? No, I didn't. And I will observe the very next question you get from every executive, every time. How has it changed? Like you told me a point in time, we had this many accidents over that 6-month period. Jim, you showed me 6 different maps of it. That's great. But how has it changed? That's what people are interested in. How is it changing over time? So that's always a thing. As a result, they start thinking about, well, what if we did this policy versus that policy? Call it a policy comparison map. Or what if we actually have proposed different policy options and we want to look at where those options might play out? We're going to pave these streets next year anyway. What if we also included some what do they call it? Traffic calming or lane calming things as part of that project. After you implement, the decision support map kicks into gear. You made these decisions. Now let's support that decision by showing what are the results. I think about maps like the naloxone maps that Phoenix, Arizona put out after distributing that capability to all emergency responders had a naloxone injector in their car. And so they tracked every interaction where that had an outcome. And that leads to outcomes map. At some point, you want to summarize, look, this was the situation before we implemented this policy. Here's our outcomes. Repeat. And that's the last map, the maps that support policy evaluation. So where should you start on this? Answer, doesn't matter. You're probably already on this continuum. This is not necessarily the only styles of maps or map products that you might consider for policy mapping, but they're relevant. I want to shift gears now to talking about a specific approach we use to make our maps. So this is a good example. This is a map of census tracts for North Carolina. So Charlotte, Greenville is in the center of the map. And this is just census tracts. It's just data. We all start here in the GIS world. I got the data. Woo! All right, let's go. What are we going to map? Well, in this case, I wanted to map this topic, percentile for air toxics respiratory hazard index. Let me say that again. If you're driving, please pull over. Percentile for air toxics respiratory hazard index. That's a mouthful. And you notice it's classified and like the lightest color is 0 to 18.7 percentile. And then the lightest purple up from that is 18.7 to 38. So that map is saying there's no difference between 18.7 and 38. It's all the same. And 38 to 58.7, it's all the same, at least color-wise. I'm not saying that's true in reality. I'm just saying this is what the software knows to do. And the policy mapper has not arrived on scene yet, right? Because these percentiles don't have any inherent meaning by themselves. So the software just says, well, you told me to use Jenks natural breaks, 5 classes, boom, here's your answer. So it's like a cookie cutter. It just said, I'm the cookie cutter. You didn't give me any other specifics, so I'm going to cookie cut it this way. I like to recommend to you today if you aren't already doing it, try using unclassed. And the reason why, look at the difference between classed. There's 5 classes. If I show this to an executive and say, well, the areas in purple have higher air toxins, I'm susceptible to the response, sir, everything on this map is purple. Is that your intent to communicate? No. So I need to give you permission. I need to give you an excuse to say, you have the right as a map maker to ask the question, for this topic, percentile for air toxics, what is a meaningful or significant number? Because it's a percentile, it occurs to me the 50th percentile is kind of saying, yeah, this is like middle of the road for the whole country. So I think it's fair game to use a color ramp where 50 is at the center of that color ramp, and you see that. And everything below 50 is in a gradually darkening shade of blue. So blue is good. And magenta, I'm choosing to make it an alert color so that the first thing you see on this map, you're like, why is everything in magenta? And then you notice something, don't you? A lot of the urban areas are darker magenta. What's our topic? Air toxics. Yeah, maybe that checks, right? Manufacturing, traffic, pollution. Okay, that probably checks out. The main thing is it reveals the variation. So it reveals subtle variation from track to track that is otherwise obscured. And that's what I want you to take away about classification today. It means well. It was created at a time when we really couldn't ask the software to do this. But we can now. And why does that matter? In this map, classed map, it's a choice. It's an editorial choice to say there is no difference among anything in this class, like in the center classes 38 to 58.7. This map is saying there's no difference, at least visually. And maybe there is a reason, maybe there's a scientific reason to state that. But for policymakers, often we set funding limits based on certain criteria. If you're in the 75th percentile or above, we'll fund, or it'll be a positive indication in your grant application that we would fund that. So think about those things. And the main value, I guess, is we are all susceptible to comparisons. It's one of the things that keeps humans alive, that also keeps us engaged. Is my house as nice as my neighbors? Is my neighborhood as nice as this as a neighborhood? Do I want to continue living here? Do I want to move on up to the east side? You know, we're all just by nature creatures of comparison. And it strikes me that maps that are unclassed, they do a great job. If you happen to live in Greenville, you can at a glance compare how Greenville looks to Charlotte, or any 2 census tracts, you can see, am I slightly better off, or is there a big change? Lastly, there's techniques you can do these days where this is just blending a population density map into this subject to really bring out, with just one little blend effect in Map Viewer, I can add this and suddenly I really see where the population lives and is present in relation to this topic. Because I had a suspicion air toxics kind of relates tightly with pop density. But then you ask your question, why up in the northern side, like Henderson, it's in blue, but it's just miles away from Greenville, Spartanburg? Why would, like, air toxins, they don't respect state lines or county lines. Why would Henderson have it better? What possibly could be going on that areas north of, on the north side of this map would be elevation? It could be elevation. It could be wind patterns. It could be a lack of industry. It could be any number of things. That's my point. A great map answers the specific question: where are air toxics worse? Where are they relatively better? And what's in the middle? Like, it could tip either way. All right, I want to give you, let's do a quick time check. And yep, cool. We're on the home stretch. We're coming down the stretch. So I'm going to give you my super secret way of making great maps. It doesn't start with the map. It actually starts with the pop-up. When you force yourself to write the pop-up before you create the cartography, so you add your link, you know you're going to make a map of, in this case, air toxics. Write the pop-up. If you can write a pop-up, see at the bottom of this, it's got all these rows and columns of data. And in this case, I applaud this user. They created actually meaningful field aliases. I don't see any field names. I see field aliases, which helps me have confidence I'm using the right information. But even rows and columns of data, if that's all that's in your pop-up, you are essentially throwing your hands up in your published layer and saying, I don't know what's important to you. I'm not interested in what's important to you. Here's all the raw data. See you later. Go for it. I hope you find what you are looking for. Another approach is to go ahead and say, I'm going to try to do them a favor. I'm going to try to explain the data at a minimum. You don't have to interpret or analyze if that's not in your scope, but you should at least be clear. What is this? In this case, air toxins in the particular census tract I click on, that tract has 1,287 people, and the air toxins rank it in the 94th percentile. Oh, by the way, 100 is the worst in the country. I added that because otherwise it's only in the metadata. By putting it right there in the pop-up, now the person reading this, they understand 94th percentile. This is pretty bad. And then when you add some other populations of interest and explain this sentence, factoring in this particular population, it would rank 61st percentile. Okay, so that's more information to have. But the super secret ingredient is if you can write the pop-up and explain the data, you are well on your way to now go back and actually build the map that explains and supports that pop-up and shows the variation around your area of interest. In this case, it's a nationwide data set. So that may be different from, mapping a single county or state or region. Rapid fire round. I mentioned I'm a big fan of continuous because of the value it adds. And I thought to myself, where else in information, communication, and data analysis do we use classed versus unclassed? Like here's a great example of a typical XY plot. This is showing the average SAT score on the X scale at the bottom and tuition fees on the Y scale. So what's the relationship between your SAT average and tuition? I was curious about that. And then what if we classed it instead? So this is unclassed data and this is classed data. I feel like a eye doctor. Do you prefer A or B? A or B? So I don't know that there's a right answer, but it's interesting, right? To kind of show these are two very different visual communications. If you do it with 3D stuff, like here is a flight path from NASA flies a air sniffer around the country. It sniffs the air and records data, and we got the GPX file of it. So there's a flight path unclassed. It shows as many observations as the data provides. And this is classed, where elevation has been classified. Let's take a closer look. So side by side, they kind of look similar, but when you really drill in, and see, this is, you can see where it took off and where it landed. So it took off and flew to the right and then climbed out and then got to a cruising altitude. But if you classify it, you lose all the detail. Does that matter? I don't know. It depends on the point you're trying to make and what the purpose of your, so if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a particular question in mind, the software isn't going to figure that out for you. Maybe it will with AI. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I generally support humans throwing themselves into the loop and saying, I don't want to throw away detail unless I have a reason. So I'm not saying classed is always bad. I'm saying give unclassed a chance to explore, like, what value does each of these approach have? I'll show you another example. This is a hiking trail in, I believe, Washington State called the Lewitt Trail. And this is showing elevation unclassed. So at the bottom of the map is the lowest elevation. Areas in red are the middle elevation, and yellow is the highest elevation. So you can definitely see some transitions there. You can kind of tell if you were to walk this whole path, you're going to have some ups and downs versus classed. It's not quite as clear. So if we show it side by side, my first question on those classifications is, why is 1,000 to 1,200 feet meaningful? And if the person making the map doesn't have a specific policy-based reason or scientifically based reason to say, well, 1,200 foot is the elevation at which X, Y, or Z happens, you really don't have a solid reason to do classification. One of my favorite maps to give this demo of is related to percent of a given category. Like this is race, ethnicity. You could do this with income just as easily, where this is unclassed percent of population who are Black or African American. If you've ever mapped this subject before, you've seen maps like this before. If you classify it, it's a very different animal. A or B? Which one's right or wrong? Well, it depends. If you have reasons to put specific breakpoints in the classification, then that's one reason. Like with race, people have talked about there is a quote tipping point, not my term. I don't like the term, but there is a behavior at which people tend to move into neighborhoods where they find other people of similar characteristics. So what does that actually mean? Well, that's very unlike rainfall. The rain falls where it falls. People don't act that way. People act differently. And so what are the chances that a classification method is going to magically find that 20% is a meaningful number and 10% is a meaningful number? And again, just it's up for you to look at. Well, if my purpose is to show variation and to show density, this color choice, this color ramp is all blue. This map is biased towards showing areas of high classification or high percentages. Oh, one more point. Just take a quick as I go back and forth. Watch how the population seems to just disappear from Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota. It's like, hey, I see the people, now they're gone. And that's, depending on the topic you're trying to map, you want to be thoughtful about that. Drilling into St. Louis, where I grew up, so I grew up right up here in Florissant. Two different maps, two different outcomes. It depends on your purpose. Some of you are aware of this already, so I know I'm preaching to the choir. But sometimes when you see it on other topics, it's amazing. Here's a map of traffic for the state of Maryland, average daily traffic volume. And here's when you classify it. Very different impressions created because the one on the left also uses width, which is legal. You can do that to influence the map. One final example, morning rush hour trips on the bus lines in Los Angeles, classed, unclassed. Why does the map get softer? Well, the average of the data is 5 trips per hour, but in the classification, 5 falls in the second lowest class, which happens to be almost yellow. So that's why the map gets softer. It's like one of the signs your map is not communicating what you want is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right compared to the data. All right, I'll stop talking. We got lots of resources. When I provide the PowerPoint, you're welcome to click on this link to our Policy Maps website where we have some tutorials and resources. And I provided some other links in case you want to just fire up and look around Living Atlas and other collections about demographics or health or transportation. And with that, I will cease speaking extemporaneously and take questions.
All right. Well, Jim, thanks a bunch. That was a fantastic presentation. It's very thought-provoking. Maya, do we have any questions? Seems like we have a lot of comments.
Yeah, none have come in so far. So guys, if you have questions, feel free to either write them in the chat or unmute. But there's some great great info here, like Brian said, and Jim is available. He's your expert here, so ask away. Oh, okay.
Andrew,
So
okay,
can you show the link to the policy map page again, please?
You bet. Let me figure out how to get there. There we go.
There you go.
Progressing. It's just esri.com/policy maps.
And for those of you going out to the UC, I believe, Jim, you're going to have a booth. Is that right? Stop by and say hello.
Yeah, there's a Living Atlas booth in what they call the showcase area. It's staffed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday all day. And you're welcome to stop by. I'll be there. My team's there. We've got about 5 people. And they pay us to make maps, which is awesome. So please come on by, talk to us about what you're doing, because what you're doing is way more interesting than anything we're doing. And that's why we go to user conference. We want to meet you, hear what you're thinking about and doing. where you're running into any issues, because then we get to go act as advocates for you within ESER.
Okay,
Very
we got a
good.
second question that came in here. Where do you typically show disclaimers on your map? Legend, pop-ups, neat line.
If it's print, it's a great question. If it's print, neat line, somewhere in the marginalia, disclaimers, understand, got to have them. If it's a web map, I'll put it inside whatever container powers that web map. So what do I mean? You create a web map, you put it in a dashboard, or you put it in a story map, or you put it in some application. So putting the disclaimer usually in a splash screen, that's I've seen people do that a lot. If I'm worried about it, I'll put it in the pop-up. I'll put a little link. I'll put the word disclaimer with a hyperlink to whatever text I want to take them to. I've done that before. So yeah, you can't put disclaimers in too many places, I find, except if it gets annoying. But splash page seems to be a popular.
Okay, good thought. And how often is the Living Atlas updated to keep up with the ACS updates?
Every year, my team is actually the one who does that in Living Atlas. We did it in late February, early March this year, because that's when the data came out. Our goal is always to get it out within 24 hours of the census itself releasing it. So that's always our goal. And then, so with that updates about 114 layers in Living Atlas. Each layer is focused on a little tiny slice of the ACS, because the ACS is, thousands of attributes. I know you would all love to download thousands of attributes, but we thought maybe you would also appreciate a second alternative where, here's all the poverty related attributes in one tidy, concise layer for tracts, counties, states. Go for it. And then we also update 200 web maps. And this year we automated that. So we used to update all this by hand. It took weeks, as you can imagine. But in our 9th year of doing it now, it's pretty much all automated. We leverage smart mapping. We leverage Python notebooks. I love my life right now. It's my favorite data set to.
Awesome. Okay, we have one person who's saying often frustrated by, quote, authoritative data sources not being very tight. Example, adjacent ESD polygons from appraisal district that gap, overlap, don't follow boundary elements like road center lines, etc. Any advice on data cleaning, fixing, etc.?
Okay, any advice? They need the feedback. Whoever the source is, they need your feedback. Because
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know about you, but I can't get funding for my projects unless I have feedback. That's the one thing within my organization. It's very clear to me. If I don't have users and I'm not getting feedback, what are you doing? So view it that way. Have empathy for that publisher. If you take the time to give them the feedback, please know there's 9 other people who saw the same observation, but they never took the time. So I love feedback. That's why we try in Living Atlas to make those feedback mechanisms possible. If they're resistant, yeah, there's maybe some other strategies. You can always send me an example if I happen to have any relationship or contact. I'm happy to reach out to people as I come across issues, because sometimes they just don't know. Like we've all been there. We publish a layer, we don't know who's using it or how. So I hope that's useful.
Yeah.
Well, good. Let's see, what else? Do you have stats for other areas other than the US?
Oh, stats? We have, oh yeah, stats like statistical data sets. Yeah, Living Atlas has thousands of layers, and we probably have content for 200 countries. It just depends on the topic. So we have a global population layer. It's global. It's a raster and a feature layer. So you can really drill in, I think, at 100 mile, and I think it goes down to, I think it's a 1 mile, if I recall. It's called World Pop. Anyway, that's global. And then country by country, Esri distributors are increasingly releasing more and more statistical data inside of Living Atlas and in other projects they're doing. So both ArcGIS Online and Living Atlas, you all understand, Living Atlas is a subset of ArcGIS Online. They're not separate things. It's just we want to elevate certain content. And the way it happens is if you let it be known, I'm looking for data for France, one way to let us know you're looking for data for France is to search for it. And we're able to, in certain things, certainly the Living Atlas homepage, we can see what searches are people doing. And that helps us tell France, hey, France, we need more. Or, hey, France, it's working. They're using your stuff. I didn't answer the question earlier. How often is Living Atlas content updated? Every hour of every day. We have stuff being updated constantly. I would estimate 1,000 layers are updated every single day in one way or another out of the 10,000. Of course, some of them are on live feeds, but yeah.
We got a few more questions here.
Yeah.
Got time for it. Go ahead. Let's see here. Olga was asking the question, what do you use instead of population, I guess, as a data source? And then another question was, is Esri Tapestry data same as the Living Atlas data?
No, it is not. Esri Tapestry data is a subset of Esri demographics. We used to have a free version of it in Living Atlas. We don't currently. There are some versions out there in ArcGIS Online that you can kind of find just by searching Esri Tapestry, and you can find them. Geo-enrichment is a very effective way to just get the tapestry, the exact tapestry data you want. Because when you say tapestry, it's like a couple hundred fields, and maybe you don't need them all. So geo-enrichment is an excellent way to get the exact quantity of data you actually want. And
I do have a question. I get asked this a lot here at work, engineering firm, and we're always looking at population growth over time. And so I guess crime data. Do you have a good layer for good crime data? I know some of it can be sensitive data, and I figured since you're here, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just ask Jim.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We don't have a good crime data layer.
Okay. Yeah.
It's for many, many reasons, all stemming from the fact that it's tracked locally, and it's pretty tricky business to make it useful in a meaningful way. So yeah, that's one of the more challenging areas of data these days, especially.
Well, we're getting pretty close to time here. I will say that I glanced over and I think that we were at 109 people attendees today. So if you need that for your records, Jim, but we appreciate everything. Maya, do we have any other questions here? We want to.
We do have, so the same gentleman that was asking about the authoritative data and how to fix those things sort of made a comment, population is a bad word, even the ACS, since it is grounded by the decennial, I don't know if I'm saying that right, census doesn't recognize growth that has taken place in areas undeveloped in 2020. What to do? So I think that's more of a thought-provoking, unless you have a comment on that.
Yeah, I do. In Living Atlas, we have a free layer called Esri Demographics, Esri Latest Demographics, and it's free. Goes down to, is it tractor? I think it goes to block group level. It's got 20 attributes. And our demographic team of about 20 people, their sole goal every year is to produce the latest estimates and projections that take into account growth. We source information from builders, home builders, apartment builders, other sources, a lot of cross-checking to find those areas of growth and put it into our data. So give that a spin. Just go to livingatlas.arcgis.com, search for Esri latest demographics. You'll find the layer right there and use it.
Excellent. And the only other thing I have here is how do you answer these questions in Living Atlas? Who, what, when, where, like a map, why, and how? Is it purely through metadata?
No, it's not purely through metadata. I think metadata is crucial and it's never been more important and appreciated. The GIS community is perhaps a little unaware of what a good position we are in, given the technology trends that are going on out there. We've got great data, we've got great people. Sometimes we skimp on metadata and we think, well, that's a cost benefit. The value of the benefit is rising rapidly. Don't get caught out. And I encourage people the tools, our Living Atlas, just sidebar, our Living Atlas guidance, we've got about 100 things we check. If you want to be in Living Atlas, here's 100 things we're going to give back to you and say, oh, if you want to be in Living Atlas, just, add field aliases. Okay. I don't want to. Okay. You don't have to. It's a recommendation.
Yeah.
But
Perfect.
you're going to get a lower score. And the score is a hint that the whole world is moving this way, but you're not. So you don't have to do it. But if you were to do it, a lot of benefits would occur. So to answer the person's question more directly, I think metadata is a great start. The thing that pulls you forward is purpose. If you don't know why you're publishing that data, I don't know how you expect end users to magically figure out the answer. Like, I love it when I see an item where there's a description or maybe a link to a blog or article that says, here's how you use this data. We understand that the schema doesn't magically self-explain it itself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we write words. I don't care where you put the words. You can put them in the description if you want, or you can link out to some blog or something where you really get into it, because the world of GIS data is so diverse. So I could tell you what the rules should be for a raster image, and then a mosaic, it's slightly different. And then, vector data as a feature layer, it's different yet again. Like, there are so many variations on the theme that we all got to kind of leverage what seems to work. And that's why we try to listen to, well, what works for you? What have you tried that really works? And more important to me is, where are you frustrated? I get more value out of those conversations than anything.
Well, fantastic presentation, Jim, and we appreciate it. We're right at time here. We're going to let everybody go. If you all have a chance to go to the Esri UC conference, check out Jim and his presentation and team on Thursday, I believe. You can look through your agenda, but please, if anybody's looking to volunteer with our organization, GPN Texas, by all means, reach out to us if you want to help the speaker series or any other part. We're always looking for volunteers. Y'all have a wonderful holiday break coming up, and be safe. And
be safe.
Appreciate it. We will see you all this time next month. And Jim, again, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate all of your work.
And we'll post this on the YouTube channel here soon. And if you get a chance, if we get the copy of the presentation, if that's okay, then let us know. We'll get that put up and sent out to people if they need it. But otherwise, you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And I think stop recording if we haven't already.
Yep.
Okay, great. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.